Wow. Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon. So,
It's afternoon.
it is. Oh, thank you for the clarification and verification. My name's Ken Zarifis. I'm president of Education Austin, merged local union, Local 2048 in Austin, Texas. But as I always say, more importantly, I'm a teacher. I taught for 12 years, 8th grade language arts, and little was going to move me out of the classroom. But what moved me out of the classroom, I taught at a school, is Burnett Middle School in north central Austin, Texas. Very high needs, 90+% free and reduced, highest ELL, highest special ed. It was just, there was a lot of needs. I lived in the neighborhood and I loved the kids. Saw them every day in the schools, in the businesses, walking around, and felt part of their community, and fortunate enough became part of their community. But what I saw on a daily basis was this untenable reality that teachers and students alike were facing. And it's been mentioned already, the lack of support so that teachers can do what they want to go in the classroom and do, and that is not just teach, but do right by a child.
Mm-hmm.
By do right by that parent's child in that classroom. What I saw was the untenable reality of children being suspended, referred, moved out on a daily basis. And it was really hard. And so an opportunity to do something different and at a different level presented itself. So I took advantage of it and ran for office. As soon as I got into office, our state cut $5.4 billion in public schools. Our district cut 10% of its teachers. 1,100 teachers were terminated in a semester. And we all know that's not good for kids. Classroom sizes went up, and already the untenable reality of our classrooms were magnified because of the short-sightedness and the selfishness of our state ledge. The thing that struggles in the classroom for the teacher, or I should say the reality of a suspension, a referral, or the problem in the classroom that I faced for that time and that I experienced with colleagues, is that we approach the problem, we approach the cause and effect of that moment in the classroom where there was a problem, there was a struggle, for whatever reason the struggle, we were addressing that, as opposed to the cause and effect that led to that problem. So we had this entry point that was wrong, and we tried to create a solution to an entry point at the wrong point in the process, therefore never being able to fix the problem. And we repeated it over and over and over and over, and we're repeating it today. There are places, there are spaces where we're addressing it differently, but in increments. We're learning, but it's happening in small increments. Everything that I've encountered in the 12 years in public ed, almost 6 years now as a union leader, as a son, as a husband, as a father, is the key to these relationships, the key to the success to any relationship, the key to any organization, any institution, comes down to two things, in my humble opinion: communications and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't rocket science here. This stuff's really simple, I think. It's our willingness to address those two issues which seems to be the rocket science. I've got to have the ability to have good communications with my group of kids, with my members, with my own children, with my wife. I have to, or it's not going to work. Those communications will lead to strong relationships. And in our schools, good communications that lead to strong relationships create great outcomes for our children and their families. It's not rocket science, but it's a willingness to actually do what needs to be done to get there. We know what it takes. We've been told what it takes. Research indicates what it takes. We know what it takes. Do we have the will to do it? Now, I have no doubt the people in this room, this is a beautiful choir. And I believe that we could erupt in some mighty singing right now. But this is the choir. We all know it. How do we make that change outside these walls? And that is ultimately, that is always the challenge. How do we get there? Because we have the will. We all want to. We don't have the dollars, but we have the will. You know, as I said, I have 3 kids and 1 wife. I'm 51. She's not. My children, thank you. My children, I've got a 2-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 16-year-old. Very different ages. But all 5 of us in our family had the same basic set of needs. We want to be loved, we want to be listened to, and we want to be valued. Once again, it's real simple. Now, the way we address those things are different developmentally as we approach individuals, and we've got to learn how to do that. But at the end of the day, there's not a lot of difference between us. We have some basic needs as human beings. And so I suggest that, and we're going to get to the community school thing in a minute here. When we have our struggles in our schools, as a practitioner, as someone that's been in the school, and in a school that did some things right and did some things very wrong, as a teacher that did some things right and did some things very wrong, how are we addressing our kids? Are they welcome? And what evidence do we have to be able to indicate of how we're making sure that they're welcome? Real simple. Are they part of our school community? All right, you're telling me yes? How are they? How are they an integral part of our school community, which is the broader community of our neighborhoods and the fabric of our cities and our communities? Lastly, what are their needs? How do you know that? How do you know what the needs of the kids that are sitting in that classroom are? Have you ever asked? Or are you just so dead set on the curriculum and making sure that everybody gets to this point on the 3rd day of school because the curriculum says so, that we have leapfrogged over finding out the needs, which is much more important than finding out what a dangling participle is. So how do we address that? How are we willing to do that? You know, there was a high school in Austin who just recently had this big eruption, this huge fight. For whatever reasons. And the response from an administrator was, they don't understand our way here and they're going to learn it. They, our.
Yeah.
Tone deaf. Our folks out of SEL, out of the inclusion department, went out and started meeting with a group of Iraqi immigrants, refugees, and found out that they didn't feel part of the community. They'd been isolated. They met, there was a group of Hispanic kids, and they began to meet as a group. They've had 2 meetings. They came to the instructor and they said, can we call this group La Familia? 2 meetings. They're talking about a family. Now, we're not going to change the world in 2 meetings, but if we're not willing to have 2 meetings, we're never going to have a chance of changing the world. We have to start. It has to begin now. You know, when I was at Burnett and doing this work, the cry when all the numbers, we started seeing skyrocketing 10, 15 years ago. The numbers are just going through your referrals. And Burnett, they were the champion in one area. And by God, we knew how to write a referral. We wrote more referrals and more suspensions to the district ALC than any other school in the district. Obviously, that got us the attention we didn't want. And is it any surprise that we struggled to be academically acceptable and to pass AYP every year when we're sending kids out every year? So it becomes, don't write so many referrals. And so we knee-jerk. Don't write the referrals. Don't suspend kids. You write too many, you get called to the office, you're called out for doing that. Well, is this a numbers game? Are we fixing numbers? Or are we actually trying to fix the racial inequity that is inherent in our system that creates the numbers to begin with? So what is it we're trying to fix? And it makes a big difference where you put those in order. If you're putting numbers first, then you're never going to upend the racial inequity that is inherent in our schools and our systems. But if you put upending racial inequity first, the numbers will follow, and it can work. So one of the ways that we're trying to make it work in Austin, to make this, rather than a programmatic change, looking at systematic change, things that are sustainable, things that hopefully pull down less dramatic resources that are just a pure infusion of dollars programmatically. They come and go because teachers are used to stuff coming and going. Every couple of years, a new program comes along. It's going to save the world. What we've done in Austin is we're approaching this through a multi-pronged approach. One is through SEL, through a creative learning initiative, which brings the arts into the schools, looking at restorative practice. And a lot of those things are captured within the community school model. And the community school model, a lot of people in this room are aware of, but is an effort in Austin to find out what the needs are, to meet those needs with resources so that kids succeed. So our vision right now is we got a grant through the AFT, through the Innovation Fund, an Innovation Fund grant, and the NEA for 2 years to create community schools that don't just address where the problems are up at high school and middle school, but looking at where is the beginning. As early as we can access that, pre-K. Pre-K to 5th or 6th grade before they go into middle school. Because if you're waiting to middle school, I'm here to tell you, 9 times out of 10, you might be too late. It's got to happen early. Just like you're standing waiting on that train, and you're telling your child to step back, or you're pulling your child back. You're trying to get a lesson across, right? And you got to get that early, and you got to get it clear if you want that behavior to stick. And a behavior of how you act on that platform, and a behavior of how you treat other people to educate them how to act on that platform. You got to get it early. And so our community schools is an effort to bring all those resources together, not just wraparound services, but strong academics, teacher and parent involvement. We're beginning to implement the parent-teacher home visitation project in Austin, looking at how we value pre-K. In Austin, we have made a $16 million investment in district-wide full-day pre-K because the kids and the families need that support. Looking at how we are able to better understand the problems of parents through restorative practices and implement restorative practice in our classrooms and find out how can we actually get people to understand the needs of our kids so that the outcomes are successful. Our dreams for our kids are successful. We got to change. I think some people, and I'm going to kind of finish up on this, some people imagine that teachers, for some reason, step into a classroom of 30 kids, 35, 40 kids, and dispense of all the baggage we bring into that classroom. We don't. We're fallible. We're human beings. We have implicit and explicit biases. We are imperfect. And we demonstrate those imperfections on a daily basis because we are human beings. However, the thing that I find beautiful about educators that I've seen year in and year out, day in and day out, is that we love to learn. We're teachable, usually. And the opportunity to learn, to evolve, to become better for our kids. Because there's nowhere that I see a greater impact, a greater value for the children in this country outside of a parent than in a classroom and the relationship that teacher has with that child. It's valuable. We're here to do it, and these things that we're talking about here are where we need to do it. It is valuable. We've got to find a way to get the support, to make sure that it's not programmatic, that it's systematic, that we actually understand the reality that we're stepping into so that we see these transformations. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope I didn't overstep too much.